My name is Samuel Aduama, an ordained minister of the gospel and also licensed by the Republic of Ghana to conduct weddings and funerals. I was born on Thursday, the 5th of August 1982 in Takoradi, in the western region of Ghana. I was born into a family of 4 boys with me inclusive and 2 girls, and I'm the 5th born. It was a Christian family, so right from the early beginnings of my life I started going to church. I would say that I was a church boy, and I've been a church boy since, so there are many things that the average person who did not come from a strong Christian background went through that I didn't go through, because I was a church boy. So I was not really a bad boy, so to speak. In fact, growing up, one of the things that my mom told me was the fact that I didn't know how to insult. It was difficult. You will never hear me, insult like you see the average kids, do that. My father is a retired officer from the Ghana Air Force, so I'm a soldier boy. So
barracks boy.
Yeah, so I grew up in the barracks.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in the barracks in Takoradi, and I had my preschool and my basic and junior high school education in Air Force complex. It's a school in the barracks, so Air Force complex, both primary and JSS. And I think in those early stages of my life, especially when I got to class 6, that is where I made a firm decision to become a Christian. That's when I decided I wanted to be a Christian. So when I entered the JHS, we were privileged to have one of our teachers who decided to start reaching out to the young people so that they can make their decision about their faith and teach them about morality and help them to dream, to be able to achieve something worthwhile in life. And fortunately for me, I was part of the cream of people that he selected to train them and equip them for this course. And that direction actually changed my life, because it changed the way I was relating with people. I don't know, some way, somehow, because of my commitment to the things of God, reading the Bible and everything, my IQ shot up. I became one of the very intelligent people. Because right from my early stages, I was quite dull, I was slow. But from JHS, things took a drastic turn in my life. And I can clearly attribute it to, one, the decision I made about confirming my faith in Christ, getting more serious with the things of God, in studying the Word of God, and also relating with other people that we were reaching out to, in those early stages. So right from the age of 14, I started preaching at conferences which we held for, those within the secondary Takoradi metropolis. And my mom was one of the elders of our church, the Garrison Church. So Air Force Garrison Church, and now we call it Air Force Presbyterian and Methodist Church, because it's now a combination of both. So I'll go to my mom, and then I'll ask for a place for our meetings, and then they will grant us permission to use our auditoriums, and then we use it for crusades and conferences. And I started ministering at that time. I had a Holy Ghost baptism at that time. I started prophesying at that time. At the age of 14, I started laying hands at that time and ministering, and it was powerful. So right from that point, I knew there was something in me. In fact, my mom confirmed that I know that you will be a pastor one day when you grow up. So I knew within my heart of heart that eventually I was going to be a minister of the gospel upon me. So then I made my way, and God spoke to me. I heard the voice of God. I believe it was the voice of God that I should make myself available to be trained into ministry. So I went straight to my mother. My mother was my closest ally. She's going to be with the Lord. She's Margaret Aduama of blessed memory. So I spoke to her and she said, okay, we're trying to get you a program in school, and when we did some inquiry in KNUST, and those times, because of my big sister, I had some link with some of the senior lecturers and professors in CCC who were teaching at KNUST. And so I forwarded my results to my sister, and then they said, the only course we think that it would be easy for him to get to do related to science is chemistry, because I had A in chemistry. So that was the angle, they were suggesting that I go, and I was like, no, I don't want to do chemistry. So eventually, when I had that experience and I informed my mom, I started looking for the next available Bible training school to attend. And in the Western region, there was one that was quite prominent and popular, and that was the Holy Fire Revival Ministries Bible School. It was called Disciple Strategy Academy. It was founded by the late Bishop Reginald Ofori-Chumesi. In fact, I know of that Bible school to be the Bible school that has trained almost all the prominent ministers in Western region now. I mean, Pastor Joe Beecham, Emmy Newman, name them, Bob Asari, name them. They all went through Disciple Strategy Academy under the Holy Fire Revivals Ministry. And during those days, I had the privilege to be taught by the founder of the ministry, in the person of Bishop Reginald Ofori-Chumesi, who was professionally, he was an engineer before he came into ministry. And he really rubbed on me because he made me understand, the supernatural and the spiritual dynamics involved in ministry. How you can stand on God's word to see God's hand move, and there are many supernatural experiences that he encountered in his ministry. Time will not allow me to recount them, but it includes the raising of the dead. It includes driving, his vehicle without fuel, and many other phenomenal experiences. And he was an evangelist. He preached in most of the communities in the Western region where the gospel had not been preached. He was among the few people, who helped break some kind of grounds in the Second Intercraft. And so right after that experience, because the course is 1 year, and then you do 3 months field work. So after the 1 year diploma, it's a diploma course, I graduated, and I was the best student academically. And I remember one of my tutors saying that we can't give you everything. We realize you have a balance, you are all-rounded person. So at least the academics, we can't give it to anybody. We'll give you the academics, the others will find a way to, give it to the other people also. So I graduated as the best student in terms of academics. Then I was moved to my station. That was my first station for ministry, and it was at Aboise Abuesi in the Western region. Aboise Abuesi is where they have the thermal plants, the Aboise thermal plants. Aboise and Abuesi is like a twin city, or like a twin town. Let me say that. It's a coastal town. So I was there, and I sat under the ministry of Reverend Akins. He's one of the senior ministers in the Holy Fire Revival Ministries now. And I worked with him. After 3 months, there were no signs of me leaving. And he was like, oh, he wished I could stay, and then we can work in ministry together. And I was like, I don't think that this is a place I want to be. But it was a real experience for me. And then eventually I moved beyond the 3 months, then it moved to 6 months. And then eventually, after about 8 months, I had to now move because I was done with my work in serving there. And my experience there was quite interesting because, that was the first time I went to the beach to to ease myself. That was the first time I had the experience of a free range, because there was this KVIP that was there, that was closed. It's in the community, but it was closed. And I think part of the problem was that, people preferred the free range than that. So we'll go and swim, and then whilst we are swimming, you see people doing action, close by and all that. And then there also, I had the opportunity to eat different foods I've not tried before. And I remember one of the instances, I used to have an old woman that was cooking for me, a trainee pastor who has come. I couldn't eat the food from the old lady. So eventually, we had some few other people who were helping us, and that's how I survived. One of the things I wanted to try there, with one of my members, was to go on sea, to go and fish, because I wanted to really try the experience. I really wanted to have that experience. I really learned how to pray more. I learned how to conduct funerals. That's where I learned how to conduct funeral services and burial services, and and all those things. So eventually I was done, and then I came back. When I came back, now I had to move on in ministry. So that was just around that time that the late Reverend Dawson Amoa has started a church in Takoradi, and it was called the Mission of Glory Church. And then he felt he was burdened by God to turn the church over to be a CCC church. By then, through my sister and my brother-in-law, I was connected to CCC. So then I moved in to also go and assist and help with the work they were doing. So I went there just to serve, because that was then, that was right after I had left Abuasi Holy Fire Church. So I went there to serve, and he gave me a number of assignments which I was doing and all that. And I remember one instance in the early days of the church where we were fixing speakers and new sound equipment. And unfortunately, it was within the Metro Mass Transit Yard. So unfortunately, we picked a ladder, a wooden ladder, which was moist by reason of the water they used to clean the buses and everything. We didn't know, so we're using it to just fix our high-rise speakers. And I was on top of the main on the ladder trying to fix the speakers with other guys. Then the ladder broke into two, and we all came down. When we came down, in fact, by the grace of God, some few people sustained some injuries, different injuries. And when we came down, I was from the top. So when I came down, I was lying flat like this, not knowing, because it was an accident. So the speaker was not positioned well. And because the ladder was broken, people were not really watching the speaker. So when the ladder was broken and then we fell, and I fell down, not knowing that the one we fixed was not positioned well. So it was just coming down, and it came to hit me directly at my back. And this is one of the local speakers which was done with wood. It was quite heavy, because you can imagine a speaker that about 6 guys are trying to place up, on a shelf. But by the grace of God, we went to the hospital, they checked, they said we are okay, no internal bleeding, nothing, and all that. But I was just there to serve, because that was actually my heart. And that has always been my heart, to serve people, So throughout that experience, I learned a lot of things about ministry. And then eventually one day I was there when he called me, and he said, "Look, Sammy, what do you want to do in life?" And I said, "Look, as for me, I think it's ministry, nothing but ministry. Now I'm convinced it's nothing but ministry." Then he said to me, and this statement he made to me, I've never forgotten, and I think it was a prophetic word to me. That was in 2002.
Who was saying that? Who?
Reverend Dawson Amoa. He's the late Reverend Dawson Amoa. He's also going to be with the Lord. Okay. And then he said, "Sammy, why don't you go and do any of these business programs that is coming up? Because one day, Pastor Ransford may need an administrator. And you being a pastor and administrator at the same time, you will find yourself in a better position to serve in his ministry." So I said, "Okay, that's fine." And I told him, "Now look, I checked the newspapers and I saw an advert by Christian Service University. You know, they are starting business programs. So maybe I can look at it and attend." And then said, "Oh, Christian Service, they train pastors. So then that means the environment will be good, because it's not a secular school that you think that, but this is a place for pastors. So you will like the environment." So I quickly arranged, got forms, filled it up, and then applied to be part of Christian Service to read business administration.
That was when?
That was in 2004. That was in 2004, the early years of 2000. I went there with Godfred. I represented as the president of my fellowship in Christian Service University. So when it was time, normally the way they do their election is simple. They do nominations, they vet them behind them, they let them go out, vet behind them, and then they vote for them. So when it was time for the nominations, I was pointed to write the names on the board. So I did. I started, and then they gave me the first name. I think the first name was a student, the president of IHCF in KNUST, and then I wrote the name. And then they gave me the second, who was from Legon. I wrote the name. Then somebody stood up and said, "He's nominating me, who is writing the name on the board." And I was from a private university. The traditional universities had dominated in leadership, at SNEC, Student National Executive Committee, under GAFES. So when I was nominated, and in fact, I didn't even know Jack. I didn't know anything about SNEC, I didn't know so much about it. So when they nominated me, I wrote my own name on the board because I was writing. Then another person nominated another person. Then 4 people, had to move out. And when we moved out, they vetted us in our absence. And from the general secretary then of the GAFES movement, his name is Reverend Emmanuel Ahilija. He was the general secretary then, at that time. And then he was giving me a feedback, together with other people who gave me feedback after the election. There was this young lady from Allied Science, Kolebu. I understand she stood up and she testified about me. Usually the people are the people from your campus. So if you are a president and then you have been nominated, they will need your secretary to speak about you, so that other people get to know about you and what you have achieved, and then they will vote for you. Then eventually, this lady spoke from a different campus, and she said she knew me way back in senior high school. I was a school prefect. I was highly respected by my teachers and the headmaster. And then she recounted all my achievements and the things that I had done when I was in school. And he said that the fact that I can still see him in a place like this, it means he has not changed. He's consistent with what he's doing. And so I will vouch for him. According to them, by the time the lady finished speaking, everybody knew that I must be the leader. And when they voted, I won. So I became the national student chairman. They call it the SNEC chairman, the national chairman for the Student National Executive Committee for GAFES. And I was inducted into office at Christian Service University College, because usually you come back to your campus and do the induction and everything. And by reason of you having that position, you are supposed to travel to almost all the campus fellowships in Ghana. So I was supposed to visit almost 26 campuses in the country. And by reason of being the SNEC chairman, you were automatically qualified to be a member of the national board of GAFES. So I also became a member of the council of GAFES in that year. I think it was in the same year, 2007, 2008, So I was privileged to, be there. And that was the first time I became part of a board. And it was a national board. And they had quite a number of prominent people, senior lecturers, specialists, and distinguished personalities in the country, because they worked closely also with Scripture Union, and they did a lot of work. And so that gave me an experience to travel to almost all the schools, and eventually I had to organize the next SNEC meeting as the leader. And so we do our election and everything. And then I finished my tenure of office powerfully. We initiated some few things to help structure, the GAFES movement, student movement in the country. One of the things I remember we did was to be able to now have zones. So you have zones and have zonal presidents, not just have the local campus president and then directly relate to the national president. Now we have zonal presidents so that we could now do much more work. Now the zonal president could visit the schools within his jurisdiction, within his zone, so that the national chairman doesn't need to travel to all the schools because it was too much for a student to do. So these were some of the things that by the grace of God we're able to introduce. But it was a real learning experience for me. And one of the, important experiences I had as the SNEC chairman was that, every 4 years, the GAFES is part of an international body. We call it the International Fellowship, the International Fellowship of Evangelical Students, IFES. GAFES is part of IFES. So every 4 years, IFES will hold an international conference in a designated place they select to bring all the various student national movements together. And that was the time they reinforced, and trained and did a lot of stuff to empower and help the various national movements to continue with tertiary student ministry. So just around that time, I became the national student president and the national chairman for GAFES, SNEC. That particular year was the year that IFES was holding the international conference in Canada. So I remember I was there when the general secretary called me. He said, look, I'm supposed to go to Canada with a staff member and possibly a student. But we have only one scholarship. So I want to give my place to you to go. So I said, okay, fine. Then he said, okay, give me your passport details. It was just like that. So give me your passport details. I'll forward it to Canada, to UK, a team they were working. They will start processing and everything. So I forwarded my details to him and everything. And eventually, when he forwarded my name, I had a full scholarship for the participation. So then the sponsorship he had from Ghana, now it meant that he will have it again. So he was going to go, and together with other, another staff of GAFES who also signed up, we wanted to go. But through that, we did we normally use it as a fundraising effort to also raise money for the GAFES movement and as part also for the trip. And that was what gave me the opportunity to travel to Canada, for the first time. And we had a wonderful time in Canada. I had a lot of experiences. Time will not allow me to recount them. But when I got to Canada, I was privileged to meet one of the distinguished ministers of the gospel. She's also going to be with the Lord. She was called Beth Cox. Beth was the national president for the Baptist Convention in Ontario. And through her, I had the opportunity to preach in a Baptist church in Hamilton, in Canada. It was called Little Bethel Baptist Church. And then I also had the opportunity to also preach in Walmer Road Baptist Church, that was in Toronto. And I explored in Canada when I was in Canada. I had different kind of experiences in Canada. Got to meet people that are still like a family, to me, even till that. One of the things I was believing God for was to get somebody to marry in Canada.
My dream has always been
But all through the work I still did with gaffers. I graduated. I specialized in human resource, but I was the only human resource student who graduated with first class in Christian service. And eventually, I had to do my national service as a teaching assistant in Christian Service University. After finishing my national service as a teaching assistant in Christian Service, that was when Pastor Ransford had spoken to me, because he was one of the key people who actually sponsored and helped me to go through my program. You know, I had some support from family, but externally I would say that he is the main person, aside other few people God brought into my life, you know, who were really a blessing to me. So right after my national service, I was invited to be his personal assistant. But that's at that time I was still serving in the youth ministry.
That was when?
That will be in 2009, I think, 2009. So I came in as a personal assistant to him, worked in his office. Then over time, I was also not just dabbling as a leader in the youth ministry. That was a new generation ministry, we call it. But I eventually also became a pastor, serving there, together with the pastors who was there, Pastor George then, and then eventually Pastor Joshua Obing. So when I came on board as a personal assistant, I think, you know, as God will have it, or as time will unfold in line with God's will and purpose, I was given one assignment after the other, and gradually from one assignment after the other, my portfolio started increasing, and from being a personal assistant, I now started acting as the administrator for the church, and then eventually I became a full-fledged administrative pastor of the church. That was within the space of, it was really within a short space of time, because when I became a personal assistant, I think it didn't take too much of a long time that pastor started introducing me to the running of the church. So within the space of almost 3 to 4 years, about 4 years maximum, I became the administrative pastor of the church. And by the way, when I entered, I was the youngest pastor in the church, and to date, I'm still the youngest pastor in the church. Joshua is older than me a few weeks, you know. So I became the administrative pastor of the church, and by reason of my role, and also how I was also able to develop very faster in line with the running of the church, eventually I doubled as the assistant pastor of the church, and I was directly assisting the Reverend Ransford Obey. And by reason of becoming the assistant pastor of the church and also the administrative pastor of the church, I was elevated to the position of being a member of the Council of Elders of the church, which is the highest decision-making body of the church. And currently, this council is the national council for the whole of CCC. And it's the greatest privilege and honor I have to be serving with this great man of God and some other distinguished personalities who are serving on the board. So currently my role is the assistant pastor, and I double also as the administrative pastor of the church and a member of the council. And I've been involved in every aspect of church life, in fact, and that is one of the things that I'm grateful to God for, because I've been involved in the aspect of ministry, planning of programs, family life. I've at a point in time I had to act as the family life director for the church for almost a year, leading these powerful people, my mothers and my fathers, you know, and that gave me an opportunity also to bless weddings. In fact, I can't count the number of weddings I've blessed in CCC ever since I became a pastor. But I think that if I'm not exaggerating, they'll be getting closer to 100, you know. So, or more even. So, I've been involved in every aspect of church life, from arranging of chairs to planning programs to publicity, organizing press conferences, everything about church life. And I'm grateful to God because I think it has really prepared me, and it is puts me in a very strategic position for any future assignment God will give to me. And by the grace of God, the board has deemed it fit to release me into heading one of our branch churches in the city of Kumasi. So we are in a kind of transition, and but until everything is finalized, I'll still continue to maintain my role here as the assistant pastor and administrative pastor of the church and a member of the council until there is replacement. But right after Easter, I'm going to have a new assignment to be the pastor in charge of one of our branch churches. And I believe that will afford me a lot more opportunity to also develop other aspects of my life that I've not done in the area of leadership. And that will also give me an opportunity to leverage on all my skills and all other things I can do, because I have a multi-skill, multi-talented personality. I can do a lot of things at the same time, and sometimes the difficulty is really knowing which one to focus and major on, you know. So I'm just trusting God for that move of my life. But when I became the administrative pastor of the church, I decided to also do further studies, and the church financed my education to do my master's. And I did my master's in business administration, and I majored in finance. And by the grace of God, I've also graduated with my MBA in finance. And in terms of the academia, there's still more I believe I'll have to do. Yes, and possibly, I think the minimum I have to do. I believe that eventually there are some political things that I will do. I foresee that, but I'm not looking at roles that are more partisan. I'm looking at a political role that is non-partisan, that can help me to also contribute my quota to the socio-economic development of the country. Every human being, that's my philosophy, every human being, whether you're a Christian, non-Christian, pastor, non-pastor, minister, non-minister, you're a political being. And whatever decision or indecision you have will determine how the country goes. Everything we do in terms of national discourse, decisions, implementation, everything affects our daily bread, the price of the food on the table. So you can't sit back and say that I don't care. All I do is to preach the gospel. You preach the gospel to people, individuals who are part of a society, who are part of a country and a nation and a people. So if you are blessed with gifts, skills, experiences, and you can offer all that, you can bring it to bear to serve your own country, then I believe that it's a commitment that I will never relent to offer if it will be a blessing to my country.
Okay. In our part of the world, we see old people, I should say, becoming presidents and leaders in significant positions in the country. Now, some of them are of the opinion that young people are not capable, or young people cannot be disciplined with the running of the country. What's your opinion on that?
I think it will be an error for anybody to generalize and say that young people will not be able to deliver and lead this nation or any organization for that matter towards greater heights of achievement and successes. I think the challenge always has been what the individual has gone through. Sometimes you can have a young person who has gone through myriads of experiences and has learned so much. And what that individual has learned in terms of understanding, knowledge, and everything, I mean, you can't match it up with even people who probably may have been advanced in age. Age is just a number. It is what the person has gone through to become what he is that is what is important. And so I think that it will really be a great error to say that, because there are still a lot of young people. In fact, it's the younger generation, the young people who are driving the world now. But what is necessary is that the young people must be able to offer themselves into circumstances and situations that will help them to build and develop themselves. Most importantly, develop character. That is what is important. And that is what I believe that those who are really genuine and they are in their Christian faith, they have. That is the plus they have. Because if you are a true, genuine Christian and you're a young man, then that means that when it comes to character and discipline, you should have them. Unfortunately, not everybody possess that. But there are people who have built their character, they've gone through so much, and they are experienced, they are honest, they are sincere, and they are visionary, and they can contribute their quota to the development. And to say that doesn't mean that the old people we have should be on the back bench. No, I believe that God works with generations, and so both the older generation and the younger generation can come together. There are things that the younger generation can learn from the older generation. There are things the older generation can learn from the younger generation, and we can all forge together ahead with one vision, pull our strength, pull our resources together, our expertise together, and push the agenda of Ghana forward. So we need everybody, but we should never, malign any group and just generalize and say that the young people cannot do it, and another group also say that the old people cannot do it. We need a certain balance. But I believe that right here in this country, Ghana, we have very skilled, very experienced, and we have young people of integrity who can lead this nation. Sometimes they are afraid to step out because, our politics and our, the national discourse sometimes is tainted with all kinds of things. So the genuine people who are afraid of being maligned and talked about don't want to step out. But I think that we have people, and the more we encourage people to step out to do things for this country, the better and the faster and accelerated our development